In the annals of Christian history, few events have sparked as much debate, reflection, and controversy as the Crusades. This series of complex, multifaceted wars, spanning nearly 2 centuries from the late 11th to the late 13th century, saw Christian armies clash with Muslim forces in a sustained struggle for control over the Holy Land, especially Jerusalem. While often remembered in broad strokes as a holy war, the Crusades were marked by a wide array of motivations, players, and consequences that influenced not only Christian and Muslim relations, but also had profound effects on medieval European society. In examining this period critically, it becomes essential to look beyond simplistic views and understand the underlying factors that drove the events, as well as the profound impact they left on both Christian and Islamic worlds. The 11th century was a time of turmoil and transformation for Christianity and Europe. The Eastern Orthodox and Western Roman Catholic branches of Christianity had split in 1054, resulting in a formal division that placed the Eastern Church under the Patriarch of Constantinople and the Western Church under the Pope in Rome. This schism had strained relations between Eastern and Western Christians, leaving both politically and spiritually fragmented. Simultaneously, the rise of Islamic caliphates and empires across the Middle East and North Africa represented a direct challenge to Christian kingdoms and territories. The rapid expansion of Islamic territories was viewed by the Christian West not only as a military threat, but also as a profound religious challenge. In the wake of these events, the idea of a holy war to reclaim the sacred city of Jerusalem from Muslim control began to gain traction, especially within the Western Christian world. In 1095, Pope Urban II took a decisive step that would resonate throughout the Christian world. At the Council of Clermont, he delivered a passionate speech, urging Christians to take up arms and journey to the east in defense of the Byzantine Empire and to reclaim Jerusalem from Muslim rule. Urban framed this mission as an act of religious devotion, promising spiritual rewards and the remission of sins for those who participated. This call to arms ignited a fervor among a wide array of European Christians, knights, nobles, and even peasants. For knights and nobles, the Crusades offered an opportunity for wealth, land, and honor. For peasants, they provided a rare chance to escape their often difficult lives and take part in a cause that promised spiritual redemption. Though many Crusaders saw the journey as an opportunity for salvation, some also saw it as a path to social and economic advancement. The First Crusade, 1095 to 1099, was, in many ways, the most successful from a Christian perspective, as it achieved many of its original goals. Led by figures such as Bohemond of Taranto, Raymond of Toulouse, and Godfrey of Bouillon, the Crusader forces moved through Anatolia and Syria, capturing key cities along the way, including Antioch and, ultimately, Jerusalem. In 1099, after a grueling siege, Jerusalem fell to the Crusaders. However, this victory came at a tremendous human cost. The capture of Jerusalem was marked by horrific acts of violence. Crusader accounts and other records describe a mass slaughter of Jerusalem's Muslim and Jewish inhabitants. Thousands were killed, and many others were driven from their homes. A brutal legacy that would taint the Crusader victory and leave scars on Christian-Muslim relations for centuries. Following the First Crusade, European powers established several Christian-held states in the Levant, including the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the County of Tripoli, the Principality of Antioch, and the County of Edessa. These Crusader states functioned as both political and military outposts, reinforcing Christian influence in the region. However, their existence was fraught with challenges. The Crusader states were precariously situated amid predominantly Muslim territories. They relied heavily on support from Europe, as well as alliances with local Christian and sometimes Muslim leaders, to maintain their control. In this period, European Crusaders and local Muslim rulers formed alliances, traded, and engaged diplomatically, complicating the common narrative of a rigid divide between the two religions. Yet, even as trade and interaction took place, the Crusader states remained a source of friction and resentment in the region, requiring continuous reinforcements from Europe. As Muslim forces in the region began to unify and resist Christian control, a series of subsequent crusades followed. The Second Crusade, 1147 to 1149, initiated after the Muslim reconquest of Edessa, was a failure for the Christian forces. Despite being led by prominent European monarchs, Including King Louis VII of France and Emperor Conrad III of Germany, the crusade failed to recapture Edessa or secure other significant victories, highlighting the logistical and strategic challenges of sustaining campaigns so far from Europe. The Third Crusade, 1187 to 1192, was launched in response to the recapture of Jerusalem by the Muslim leader Saladin, who united Muslim forces across Egypt, Syria, and Mesopotamia. Under the leadership of King Richard the Lionheart of England, the Crusaders succeeded in retaking the port city of Acre and securing a Christian foothold on the coast, but ultimately failed to reclaim Jerusalem. A truce brokered between Richard and Saladin allowed Christian pilgrims limited access to the Holy City, a testament to the pragmatism that sometimes emerged amid the fervor of the Crusades. The Fourth Crusade, 1202 to 1204, marked a significant departure from the original religious objectives of the Crusades. Instead of advancing toward Jerusalem, the Crusaders became embroiled in the politics of the Byzantine Empire, ultimately diverting their campaign to sack Constantinople, a Christian city. This act shocked the Christian world and deepened the rift between the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches, showcasing how the Crusades had veered from their spiritual motivations toward more overtly political and economic objectives. Subsequent crusades were even less focused on religious goals. The Fifth Crusade, the Sixth Crusade, led by Emperor Frederick II, who achieved a peaceful handover of Jerusalem in 1229 through diplomacy, and the Seventh Crusade, led by King Louis IX of France, were each characterized by diminishing enthusiasm and dwindling support. By the end of the 13th century, the Crusader states had largely been reclaimed by Muslim forces, and the crusading era gradually came to a close. The legacy of the Crusades extended well beyond the battlefield, influencing Christian and Muslim relations, European politics, and the development of Western civilization. The Crusades deepened animosity between the Christian and Muslim worlds. Accounts of brutality and betrayal from both sides fueled a mutual distrust that persisted for centuries, contributing to stereotypes and prejudices that would shape Western and Islamic perceptions of each other. Religious military orders, such as the Knights Templar, the Knights Hospitaller, and the Teutonic Knights, emerged as influential forces during the Crusades. These orders combined monastic ideals with martial duty, amassing wealth and power that influenced European politics and the Church's role in secular affairs. Despite the violence, the Crusades facilitated trade and cultural exchange between Europe and the Middle East. Crusaders returned with knowledge of Arabic medicine, science, and philosophy, while merchants established trade routes that introduced goods like spices, silk, and glass to European markets. These exchanges contributed to the early development of the Renaissance by reintroducing classical knowledge and sparking new intellectual pursuits. The Crusades reinforced feudal structures by emphasizing the power and importance of knights and noble families. Feudal lords gained more wealth and land, while the Church's influence grew, particularly as the papacy used the Crusades to assert its authority over European monarchs and nobles. The Crusades have often been criticized for their brutality, religious intolerance, and the imperialistic motives that accompanied the more spiritual justifications. The campaigns were marked by widespread violence and atrocities. Crusader armies frequently committed atrocities against not only Muslim opponents but also Jews and even Eastern Christians. Pogroms against Jews in Europe became a tragic prelude to several crusades, further embedding religious intolerance within European society. Religious intolerance. The Crusades perpetuated a zealous, exclusivist form of Christianity that rejected coexistence with other religions. This legacy of intolerance would echo through later conflicts and contribute to a rigidly defined Christian identity in Europe. Colonialism and imperialism. The Crusades, while initially aimed at religious objectives, also represented early forms of colonialism. Christian forces sought to establish dominance over foreign lands, creating territories ruled by European elites and subordinating local populations. The Crusades are a deeply contested chapter in Christian history, embodying both genuine devotion and the darker impulses of zealotry and violence. To some, they represent a noble defense of the faith. To others, they exemplify a shameful episode of conquest and intolerance. As we reflect on this era, we uncover a tapestry of motivations, actions, and consequences that challenge simplistic interpretations. Ultimately, The Crusades serve as a poignant reminder of the dangers of fanaticism, intolerance, and violence. They reveal the complexity of faith and human nature, showing how ideals can be corrupted and how even noble intentions can lead to suffering. In navigating the complexities of today's globalized world, the lessons of the Crusades urge us to seek greater understanding, tolerance, and reflection on the consequences of our beliefs and actions.